Hello.
I'm Shannon.
Paul, obviously. I don't think anyone would mistake me for Shannon.
So, we're talking today about something very dear to our heart. And so me and Paul actually met in 2004, was it?
Yep.
And this was right after the Asian crisis, Asian tsunami. And we actually met on ground in Phuket. And we were all helping with the tsunami aftermath. And Paul's job, were you a scuba diver?
No. So I was processing the corpses at the temples.
And I was processing the corpses at the temples. And our friends, like there was literally 5,000 corpses, and that was our duty to help with the relatives that were looking for their bodies of their loved ones and whatnot. So very gruesome time, but right after that, also saw a few neighborhoods that were overlooked, built them a school, got them scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're alluding to right now is back in the day, we used to do a lot of charity. We still do a lot of charity. You run a charity called Masai.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, even to take a step back, I think Shannon and I met as a part of a group of young Thai people that were involved in banking, consulting, all these sort of, dream white-collar careers, but none of that is what pulled us together. It was basically a crisis. I think all of us wanted to help. It brought a lot of us together. We had a chance to meet, Shannon, myself, actually a whole slew of people that we're still friends with today. And I think what's amazing is that through the different permutations of our careers, because I think Shannon and I were both bankers at the time, then I think we both did corporate. Now we're actually both VCs. We're not coordinating this. But all along, Shannon and I have each independently maintained sort of this interest in philanthropic work, working with indigent communities, and in a lot of ways, it's really the two separate worlds.
Yeah.
We operate in finance and consulting and tech, and then we have this entire separate second life of, trying to do good. And I guess what we're trying to figure out with this chat is, is there a way that we can marry these two worlds effectively? Because I do keep the tech side very separate from my philanthropic side.
Right. And actually, now as I'm with Gobi, I talk to a lot of LPs. One of the things why I'm bringing this up is also, I guess this is targeted to people who don't know what kind of startups to start yet, and why in doing a startup that has to do with impact or social is good. Why is it good? There's actually, I'll tell you in a second. Two, for people who already have startups and how to put a spin on it to actually do impact, create impact as well. And then three, for people who are parts of funds, there's actually a lot of money out there that's now being redirected and allocated to social good. And some of the things that I've seen, and we were just talking about this, is a thing called ESG investing. And Goldman Sachs actually covers this. And they've been complaining about not having enough startups or SMEs or anything to invest in. And what ESG stands for is environmental, so anything climate change, anything energy, green, social, anything diversity, anything, human rights, even animal welfare, and then governance, so anything that has to do with productivity and being able to account for all this stuff. So there's a lot of money now coming, and so that's basically what we're trying to say. Like, anybody who wants this, there's a big opportunity right now.
Well, I think what's important is to emphasize that it's not just the money coming into impact investing or ESG, but the opportunities to earn a decent rate of return. Because, I think, as we were talking about, we were talking about financial inclusion backstage, and I actually had a conversation on the topic a little bit earlier today where, I manage a corporate VC fund for a bank. And so, within the bank, I think the bank itself and the banking industry sees financial inclusion as almost a social impact,
Right.
or a social responsibility. So it's like, oh, if we do financial inclusion, that's a feel good, do good kind of thing. And my argument has always been that with today's technology, it's no longer just charitable work.
Yeah.
It's actually a source of return, because I think the issue with financial inclusion is the argument that serving unbanked communities, farmers, indigents, it's a money-losing proposition. So we do it just because it's a good thing to do. But technology drives down the cost of a lot of these enterprises. It's cheaper to do a startup nowadays than it was 20 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, it cost about $5 million to launch a startup. Now you can launch one for $5,000. So if you focus on doing good in the form of some sort of revenue-generating startup, it doesn't take a whole lot to serve a lot of these communities, not just effectively, but profitably.
I mean, I was just talking to a sushi-san, part of Mistletoe, and they do social innovation. And they too have seen the revenues and the returns that are doing incredible. He didn't tell me the number, of course, but basically there's this really exciting one. It was a drone company out of Silicon Valley. They actually got mandated to do something in Rwanda to deliver blood to this place where the roads are messed up. There's war, there's crime, there's all of this stuff, and they're doing amazingly well. Yes. So I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're actually seeing, before people used to be like, no, I don't want to do social because the yields and the returns are not as good. But literally, when you're helping something, solving a critical key problem at scale, at mass, of course it's going to make money and have room for maximum growth.
Well, I think if we look at Thailand, where the two of us come from, there's been a lot of movement to bring down the cost of money transfers through the Prompt Pay network.
Yep.
My bank has been looking at doing international remittances on blockchain. And really the big fear from the banks is that if we do that, our revenue base is going to fall by, 50%.
Right.
And I tell them, okay, that assumption assumes, one, that our costs are not dropping by more than 50%, which they will. So if our costs drop by more than 50%, actually our margins just increased. But if you actually reduce the cost of a micropayment, you increase the velocity. I think there is a phenomenal amount of price elasticity in areas like money transfer. So, my argument has always been, if you reduce the cost of peer-to-peer transfers, remittances, you're going to get a multiplier effect that far outweighs any perceived loss in margin or revenue or profitability, which actually isn't true. Because again, you increase margin, you vastly increase velocity, and I think that type of thinking is lost in a world where, in a place like banking, but we see industries like education, healthcare, commerce, that a lot of people that drive these industries view it from the lens of traditional bricks and mortar businesses, and not from what happens when you have the power of the internet, the power of mobility and mobile phones, technologies that can go exceedingly viral very fast at very low cost.
Another opportunity that I discovered a couple years ago was this thing called gender lens investing. And basically, here's what the definition means. It's investing into women founders, women entrepreneurs, companies with majority women employees, and this is the best part for men out there, any company that's basically directed, that has a product or service for women. So it's basically everything, right? And the great thing is, like, this year alone, there's been so much commitment to gender lens investing that if you have a company that is doing something, any of those 3-4 definitions, then you should go get some money from them, because there's grants that are out there right now. There are, a ton of free money, so you don't have to worry about dilution. You don't have to worry about, keep on fundraising. If you build it right, you actually have a grant system that basically funds your entire business for the entire year without dilution or worried about. I know I'm a venture capital, but you know what?
But that's a really great point, because I know that there's a lot of tension nowadays particularly in the VC space and the entrepreneurial space, about gender diversity, or actually probably not even gender diversity. I think diversity in all its forms, whether it's racial diversity, whether it's diversity in lifestyle and sexual orientation, nationality. How do we get more diverse startups as well as VCs? And on the face of it, that seems like another issue that's like, okay, we're doing it just for the sake of feel good, or it's the right thing to do. But studies have shown that startups that have more diverse managing teams, that actually include a certain percentage of women on the founding team, in the long run perform much better than startups that are just all male founding teams. So, even if you don't care about gender diversity, I bet you care about generating financial return. So it only makes sense. And again, so, for me, a lot of my mission is to get, my LP, which is the bank, an investment committee, away from this thinking that I'm trying to push more female founders, or I'm trying to go after unbanked demographics, not because, I want to feel good, but because I think as a bank we can make a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't care about doing good, I know you care about making a lot of money, but it's still a message that I think gets lost in translation.
And if those things don't appeal to you yet, it's also great branding, and meaning branding to attract HR. So when I did my startup, which was for women advocacy, the passion was just so strong that everybody who joined for a reason, and they wanted to make an impact, and they stayed longer, and all the morale and everything it was so great because everybody was really there. The millennials especially right now, they're trying to look for their ikigai, right? And everybody wants to love what they do. And so, to actually build that into the mission statement and into your product and service not only helps you attract talent, but retain talent as well. So overall, why not, right?
So I want to take this and bring it a little bit more down to earth, because we're talking at a very high level. But, Shannon, you're Gobi's newest venture partner. They're basically going to unleash you across Southeast Asia. What are your hopes and dreams in terms of tying social impact with what you're going to be doing as a newly minted VC in a way that's consistent with what Gobi wants to do in the region?
Well, as VCs, we try to make sure that we're not tree huggers, right? So we're not going to invest just to invest into something that feels good. And obviously, we have to have the high returns and 100 million valuation in 5 years. Anybody out there, please talk to us. But, so obviously there's that financial mandate. But what I actually want to achieve is I actually want to go out there and look and uncover those people that are doing amazing agri-tech, right? Helping the farmers of Thailand, of Indo, and all this, making sure that they have an avenue and pathway, because the thing that we do is we come from China, meaning Gobi, right? And we've seen the crystal ball of what actually works there. Like, they've transformed their entire economy. That is pretty much what the emerging markets have here in Indo and Vietnam and whatnot. And so there's so much potential, and I want to bring those learnings over as well. So a lot of the things that we're targeting is, and myself personally, is anything that's still impactful but also make money. So, everything ranging from woman-focused businesses such as, financial inclusion, the unbanked insurance, healthcare, education is big for us. Again, agri-food actually is very big for us to make people eat healthier. Energy, climate change, all of that stuff, that's still very, major returns as well. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to help and show, that there is, a pathway, and that we're here to support. So,
we got like 40 seconds left. I actually, so it's interesting, some of the points that you just talked about, because, as Asian-based entrepreneurs and VCs, we do spend a lot of time looking at models, either here in Singapore, or we look at China. But I think what's quite interesting, and we mentioned a few times, or we've alluded to a few times, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in Africa, and not that I'm suggesting that everyone go off to Africa, but if you're looking for case studies beyond just China or Southeast Asia, there's a lot of stuff happening in Africa on the impact side regarding finance, education, health.
Right.
You're talking about drones for blood, and it's interesting because these are social impact companies that are actually generating some really interesting financial returns. They're making money. They're doing good, and they're touching across wide sectors of society. And I bring up Africa because I spent quite a bit of time out there. But demographically speaking, Southeast Asians, if we look at the demographics and the economics, we have a lot more in common with places like Africa and Latin America than we do with China. So it's just our parting thoughts before we get booted off the stage.
So yeah, actually get to save the world, right, through tech, and
make money. So
and make money
that's what they
too.
say. Change the world.
But yeah, there we go. Thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.